Tim Cook stepping down as Apple's CEO has been widely covered as a story of a smooth, stable transition. But look closely at the new organizational chart. The incoming CEO, John Ternus, is a lifelong hardware engineer. His second-in-command, the new chief hardware officer, has run Apple's chip design for a decade. Both are silicon specialists. Putting two hardware engineers at the very top of the company, right as Apple is visibly trailing in the artificial intelligence software race, feels contradictory. The rest of the industry is currently elevating AI researchers and software executives. Apple isn't retreating from artificial intelligence. By putting chip designers in charge, they are declaring they will fight the AI battle on entirely different terms than the rest of the industry. To understand why Apple made this specific choice, you have to look past their own campus and examine the broader AI market. Beneath the funding rounds and daily product announcements, the current approach to AI development is hiding an economic crisis. The elevation of hardware engineers is a calculated move. Apple is building an escape route from a business model that does not work at scale. The major frontier labs are actively losing money on their top-tier consumer subscriptions. Even at $20 or $200 a month, a highly capable model serving a serious user doing real work costs more to operate than the subscription price covers. This chart shows why the math is failing. While subscription revenue stays flat on this horizontal line, the computing costs follow a steeply rising, volatile curve. In cloud computing, every single prompt, translation, or question a user asks incurs a variable cost. The more you use the product, the more the lab pays to process your requests. Right now, that gap is being filled by venture capital. Influxes of investor cash act as a temporary shield, quietly subsidizing the daily losses generated by these consumer subscriptions, so the usage feels cheap to the public. Eventually, that financial shield will hit hard physical limits. The expansion of data centers relies entirely on global power grid capacity and the physical fabrication limits of GPU manufacturers. You can only draw so much electricity and print so many chips. When those constraints fully tighten, the AI market splits into two distinct classes. Large enterprises signing 8-figure contracts will get dedicated capacity with long-running complex agents. Average consumers will get strictly metered, throttled access, because that is all the labs can afford to serve them. Apple sells iPhones based on a premium, cohesive software experience. They cannot build a 10-year product roadmap on top of a throttled, loss-making third-party cloud service where their users are constantly watching a meter. Apple has operated under a strict functional organization structure for the last 15 years. There is no dedicated iPhone team or Mac team. Instead, there are hardware, software, services, and design teams. These groups are forced to meet, argue, and integrate their work to build a single device. This horizontal consensus model is how you get a watch, a phone, and earbuds to feel like one seamless ecosystem. But it is the wrong structure for matching the rapid, vertical shipping cadence of AI labs, where one executive can push a new model update every month without asking permission from 5 other departments. Apple's board faced a choice: rip apart their highly successful corporate culture to try and match the software velocity of the labs, or lean into the race they are already built to run. They chose hardware. Their technical solution is on-device inference. Instead of pinging a remote data center for every command, the AI models run locally, directly on the silicon inside the phone or the laptop. This creates an economic inversion. The user pays for the chip up front when they buy the device. Once that fixed cost is settled, asking a local AI model 1,000 questions costs the exact same as asking it one. The marginal price of running the compute drops to zero. Apple's local compute strategy is a direct repeat of the move that founded the company 50 years ago. In the 1970s, computing was a service. The actual processing power lived in someone else's building inside massive corporate mainframes. Users rented time and paid by the hour. The only people who could afford to heavily use the system were large institutions that could stomach the continuous meter. The Apple II disrupted that entire model. It didn't beat the mainframe on raw power. It moved a useful amount of compute directly onto a physical machine that you owned outright. The moment the marginal cost of computing disappeared, a new class of power users emerged. Because they could leave their machines running all night without paying an hourly fee, these users were free to experiment. That unmetered local access led to the invention of the digital spreadsheet, a tool mainframes could not afford to run continuously. Today, Apple looks at the hyperscaler cloud labs and sees the mainframes of the 1970s. By placing heavy AI processing directly onto their own chips, they are positioning their hardware to be the zero-cost playground for the next generation of power users. This hardware pivot addresses a highly lucrative category of buyers who are trying to escape the cloud today. Across the U.S., law firms, medical practices, financial advisors, and accounting groups are under pressure to integrate AI into their daily work. They face a structural barrier. Feeding confidential legal briefs or private patient records into a public cloud AI model triggers regulatory violations and malpractice risks. The data cannot leave their physical control. Their workaround is improvised. Right now, small firms are buying clusters of consumer Mac Minis and stacking them in office closets. They are using these machines to run private, hyperlocal AI models, allowing them to summarize documents and draft emails without a single byte of data ever leaving the building. Even Apple's highly secure private cloud compute offering does not solve this. Cryptography is great, but a law firm has to prove to its regulators and malpractice carriers exactly which legal jurisdiction its data is sitting in. They require absolute physical control over the hardware. A large segment of the U.S. professional services economy, which is measured in trillions of dollars, currently lacks an enterprise-grade vendor for this local hardware. There are no rack-mountable setups, clustering software, or local admin tools built for Apple Silicon. Software developers can pivot from building thin wrappers for expensive cloud APIs to creating products that only make economic sense when the compute is local and free. By handing the company over to silicon engineers, Apple is returning to the strategy they first tested 50 years ago. They believe the most useful, sustainable future of artificial intelligence does not live inside a distant, metered data center. It lives directly inside the unmetered hardware you physically own.